What do these three movies have in common? All dramas directed by the same guy. Now his latest film is a dark crime comedy thriller. Well, as someone once sang, one of these things is not like the others. By the way, congrats on your engagement, Taylor.
What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you my review for Caught Stealing in One Take. Now, this is based on the book of the same name by Charlie Houston and follows an ex-baseball prospect named Hank, who has unexpectedly found himself into the underbelly of NYC's crime scene in 1998. Going into this movie, I was looking forward to seeing it, and as I hinted at in my intro, there was a curiosity factor because of who directed this movie. This film is directed by Darren Aronofsky, and prior to this film, he has mostly done, I would say, character-based dramas, or at least dramas at their core. And running through what films of his that I have seen, Requiem for a Dream is both an effective anti-drug PSA and one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. I do not know anyone who would watch that more than once, but it is a fantastic film. Then we have The Wrestler, which was a comeback vehicle for Mickey Rourke. He got an Oscar nomination for that, and I thought that was great as well, too. Then Black Swan, along similar, and I think greater lines, as that is my favorite movie from Aronofsky. He got an Oscar nomination for that one. Natalie Portman won the Best Actress Oscar. So well-deserved. I think that movie is a masterpiece. Then he gave us 2014's Noah, which is a biblical epic, but it's a drama at its core still, and you could say that is one of his more different movies too, but I really like that for what it did and just its whole scale. Then 2017, he gave us Mother, starring Jennifer Lawrence, which I thought she gave a powerhouse performance in that, but it sharply divided audiences, and just wow. I at least was on that movie's wavelength, and that is another biblical tale of sorts too. And most recently, he gave us The Whale, which won another one of his lead performers an acting Oscar. Brendan Fraser won the Oscar for Best Actor there. And now we have Caught Stealing, which is different from all those other films that I've just mentioned because it's a dark crime comedy thriller, but it looked like it would be a fun time, and seeing what he would do and just stepping away from his usual stuff or just trying to be on a different kind of pace with what he's doing and telling a story like this. And starting out with the cast and their performances. We have Austin Butler as Hank. Now, Austin Butler has really risen to be a star in films. Of course, most recently, he has done stuff like Elvis, where he played the titular king of rock and roll there, got an Oscar nomination for that. He was also in Dune Part 2 last year, playing Fade Routha, a villainous role type, and earlier this year he was also in Eddington. I will always remember him as being on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, either in supporting roles or as background characters, and every time I rewatch a show from one of those networks, I'm always thinking to myself, Oscar nominee Austin Butler. So yeah, that's cool. And here in Caught Stealing, he brings a lot of charisma here, just like he does in a lot of other stuff that I've seen him in. And he's thrown into this situation really quickly, at least after we get to know his character. He's originally from California. He's a huge fan of the San Francisco Giants. That's what he bonds with his mom over on the phone when she's back at home. And he was an ex-baseball prospect, and that stopped, or his dream of playing baseball stopped after something happened in his past that continues to haunt him into the present of this movie's narrative. And then his neighbor leaves for a trip, and then he suddenly gets roped into the crime scene of NYC. And there's a lot that is brought to the table with his character. And when he needs to fight back, the physicality element is there for Butler at least. And with some of Aronofsky's past movies being character studies, you can argue this is one of sorts too, even if it's not overtly psychological, or it's not as depressing as his other movies, but Butler really brings it here. I thought he gave a grade A performance in this film. The rest of the cast here, I also think, are very good. Zoe Kravitz plays his paramedic girlfriend. I really liked their scenes together. There's also some of the gangster characters, like two Jewish ones played by Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber. And I thought they were funny because it's like, well, once you see past the facial hair and the hats and just the getups they have, you can tell it's them. And then there's also a detective played by Regina King. Speaking of Oscar nominees slash winners, she is a class act here coming into the fray. There's also a Puerto Rican gangster played by Bad Bunny, though he's credited here by his birth name. And he's basically doing the same thing here as what he did in Bullet Train a few years ago. And, you know, personally, I cannot stand his music in real life, but I thought he did fine in Bullet Train, and he did fine here for what he had to do. And there's also Matt Smith, excuse me, playing the neighbor to Hank, who's the reason this whole thing all starts. He wants Butler's Hank to watch his cat while he is away, and then a bunch of bad people want something that he has, but he is not there. Excuse me. The cat, I got to give a shout out to as well, because he is a big part of the movie too, just being under the care of Hank and the whole time. Smith's character is just a British punk rock type with this mohawk and the clothes that he's wearing, very reminiscent of the era. Yeah, this movie is literally living and breathing caricatures or characters here that fit the time period and setting. And, you know, I thought it was a strong ensemble. Now, getting into the writing, the book that this movie is based on, I had never heard of or read prior to seeing this movie, but given that Charlie Houston, who wrote the book, is also adapting the film into a screenplay here, or adapting the book into a film screenplay, I should say, it's interesting just how the world building is set up, because this is a very NYC-centric film. I would compare this to even something that I saw earlier this month with Spike Lee's latest joint, Highest to Lowest. That is set in modern-day NYC. And it felt like it was so ingrained and enlaced with how it is showing off the city there. But here, this is a period piece showing that it takes place in 1998 NYC, and just seeing different nooks and crannies and different places that are explored here. On paper, that is what I was able to see and really get into the movie right off the bat. Also, with how the movie does take its time. The movie takes its time to get us into the main character of Hank and knowing what his deal is before it ropes us into having him beaten to a pulp at one point when his neighbor is not there, and two Russian goons are looking for something in particular, and then more people are after him, and everything just goes into play. And I think that makes this movie, like I mentioned with the performance of Butler here, kind of kind of a character study, or I don't know, but anyway, this is what I get for doing this in one take, as I always say, but it is a character study of sorts. I mean, it's not psychological, but we see all the cogs in Hank's head turning, figuring out what he's trying to do next. I mean, he's trying to survive, but also make sense of like what is happening. Why do these people want this certain thing that his neighbor has, but his neighbor is not here? I mean, that character is mostly out of the movie for the middle chunk after he leaves, and he leaves his cat with Hank, and then eventually he does come back. But anyway, yeah, all that coming into play. And the directing by Darren Aronofsky, it's very assured. And despite him playing with a different genre here, I think that still makes the movie very punchy. It does have an energy about it to keep it going. And how it all clocks in at about an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was pitch perfect in the way that it ran all together and just seeing things go and fall into play. I will say that, you know, even with this being a typical simple story, there are elements that had me surprised. There's some, not twists I should say, but reveals or certain actions that happen where I'm like, whoa, like it kept me invested and really with the movie going all together. Sure, some things I'm like, okay, just going through a certain motion here and there, or in particular of one character, at first I was like, okay, so this person the whole time doing this or was doing this, or I'm not sure. But yeah, well, I'm not sure in me saying that without spoiling this movie. But in any sense, yeah, certain elements like those I was taken a bit aback by, but it didn't ruin the experience because I was still watching it and thinking that, wow, this is a wild ride in a lot of ways because, I was rooting for Butler's Hank to get out of all this because, he really didn't deserve all of it in the first place and it's just roped in. He's just a regular guy doing whatever he's doing, being a bartender as a job, loving baseball, loving his girlfriend, loving his mom back at home. I mean, all that coming into play. And again, the setting of 1998 NYC also gives it an added element and edge that I was into as well. Getting into the technical elements, the movie is so well shot, very dark, very grimy in many moments to really back up that whole setting this movie is trying to express. The way it is designed in terms of not just the costumes or what characters are wearing to be period accurate, but just, again, how the movie is set in 1998 NYC, combining with the cinematography. I felt like I was sucked into this time period. I mean, I was born in 1997, so literally I was not even cognizant when this movie is taking place in a time as such as this one, but in any sense, seeping into the late 1990s, into the early 2000s, that always gets to me in some sort of way, just to feel a certain way about it with how, yeah, this is technically my era that I was being brought up in, minus the criminal element or just how crazy things eventually all get. And then the way it is edited, the way it is cut, you can tell in some senses that this is an Aronofsky film because action-wise, I mean, it's not the cleanest ever. You can still see everything visibly, and it's not like anything is obscured or shook up too much, like, not like that. But it does go in the way of still feeling like it is intact, just getting us engaged with what is going on. Even in some of the smaller or the more quieter moments, just getting the expression from Butler and other characters just through there, just to keep the thematic element of the movie going. All of this coming into play, coming together, as I said, the movie clocking in at about an hour and 45 minutes. I think that this is a briskly well-done movie, and I think coming this late into the summer, I mean, right now here in the United States, it is Labor Day weekend. Happy Labor Day weekend to all of my American viewers. This, I think, is a late summer treat. I think that, oh my God, Siren, let's wait for that to pass by. I live on a main road. I should cut this out in reality, but one take. The main road I live on also happens to be up the street from a hospital. But anyway, I think this is a late summer treat because at this point in the season, we don't get too many big movies until the fall season really truly hits. I think either if you're following award season or the festivals that are starting up right now, Venice just started recently, or even the Halloween horror type stuff. I mean, the next Conjuring movie comes out next week, but I've not seen any of those films, so I'm not too likely to go see that supposed last one in that series. And then in October, of course, more festival movies and more Halloween horror type stuff is set to be released. But here, at this point now, at this moment in time, where we're in the final days of August, I think that Caught Stealing is a really enjoyable film. I really enjoyed it. I think it is a solid effort, whether you want to see something that is different from Aronofsky's filmography, or even if you want to go to the movies at some point during this long weekend here, if you're living in the US or wherever this movie is released. I don't know if it's a long weekend for you too, but I think that this is very entertaining. There's stuff in here that you'll get out of whether you're seeing the character moments or even just in the more thrilling angles of it being a thriller that, I think is worth watching at some point. I really enjoyed this movie. As I said, I definitely recommend it. With all of that being said, I now have to give, I will now give my final verdict for Caught Stealing. My final verdict for Caught Stealing is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Caught Stealing. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.